Welcome back
to another episode of the Landscaping Podcast. We are your hosts, Zac and Shay, and today we are talking about to sub or not to sub contract. We have worked with some incredible individuals just in my past 6 months, multiple companies I'm thinking of that we have worked side by side with. They've been able to step up and help us out when we couldn't get to a job, or they were just more geared to do that job. And so I asked Shay the question, like, when do you decide, is it time to get a subcontractor to handle something, or is it best to be a subcontractor for someone else? Because we've also done that.
Yep.
And so we're going to talk about that today. So if you have any questions on subcontractor or anything we don't cover throughout this conversation, make sure you drop it in the comment below. Make sure you're following so you don't miss a thing. And with that, Shay, to sub or not to sub?
So ultimately, I mean, what is a subcontractor? Subcontractor is someone who works under a contractor. Will be working under their license on that job because all the money would be going through the contractor. To sub or not to sub, I mean, or to be the sub versus being the contractor. You know, if you hold all the licensing, but you're still working as a sub for someone else, I don't see it being negative to be a subcontractor if you also hold the same credentials of being a contractor, because ultimately it's a relationship. You know, your job with what you're doing is to provide the service that you do to the people that are asking for the service. And so if a contractor calls you and say they're another landscaper and they got a job that you're capable of doing and they ask you to do it for them, but you also would have equally have been able to have been the whole contractor for it, you know, for one, don't look at it as, well, why didn't they call me first? Look at it as, well, this guy's calling me because he knows I do good work. And so let me just provide the same service for the contractor that I would have provided for, you know, the client. And so don't look at it as negative. Look at it as, I'm still doing the same thing I do every day, which is providing the service that we said we would provide, providing the quality of work that we would normally provide, and you're just doing it, you know, under someone else's name. I have no problem with that because our trucks are logoed up to the gills, and so if we're out there, then people see us, and it's exposure. We do a good job. Zac does a good job with content on social media platforms, so even when we're on that job, we're expanding the awareness of their company. We're expanding the awareness of our company. All the people that go look at a job, you know, that are using the space that we built, whether it's a personal homeowner or a big organization, you know, they're asking the questions, who did this? And before you know it, you know, you both are growing. And then you're being the sub for them more often than not, which means that your profit margins are still going because you're still working. And so I see no issue being the sub. I also see no issue being the contractor and hiring a sub. We've done that before with a buddy of mine that does a little bit more like land mulching and vegetation clearing. We do that as well. We have all the machinery to do that. However, sometimes, you know, what a customer wants is more suited for what he actually is geared for, and he's usually able to get in there and produce a cleaner product faster than what we are for the same cost. And so it's beneficial. It's like, all right, if we're busy and the customer calls and wants something done, then it's like, all right, we'll sub this out to Mazzell Landworks. So no hesitation to throw the name out there. Mazzell Landworks, we'll sub that stuff out to him and get him to come look at it and quote it. And we're pretty much just the middleman in that. But it's because we stand behind the quality of our subs. So if we sub you out, we know you're going to give the same quality that we would provide. Just like if we're a sub, you know, for another landscaper or for another general contractor, then we're doing the same quality of work that they want to see, which is why we work for them. So I see no issues being the sub or the contractor in either scenario. I think it's good for competition. It's good for, you know, being able to keep the budgets right. It's good all the way around.
Yeah, so I don't even think I've ever experienced in our relationships being the sub or subcontracting others, there being any ego involved. But is that something that happens in the industry? So is that a known thing?
So I've never had an issue with it. I've had conversations with people, you know, out on the town where they're going, oh, well, you were just a sub for that job. And it's like, the way you said it makes it seem like I'm lesser of a person, but it's like, I don't care. I still did the work and I still got paid the same way I would have got paid if I was the contractor. So it doesn't matter to me if I was a sub for that job or the contractor.
Oh, you're just on special teams for the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm on the Patriots. Like,
yeah, that's right.
What are you talking about? That's interesting. I never thought of that. Like I said, I have not come across it. But as you're saying it, I could see how someone could be like, they just feel they're above or they feel like they're beneath or whatever. And I'm glad that we've not run into that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that people we work with, like Mazel and Son or Mazel Landworks.
Yeah, Mazel
like
yes,
them.
Mazel and Son.
We worked with Rhett. I think it was his dad.
NC Tree Company, yeah.
You know the company names. So all the guys we've been working with, super cool dudes, like super
Yep.
cool people, super cool business. I've had nothing but positive experiences, working with all of them, and it's been awesome. And we found ourselves in some cool places, being the subcontracted to handle some hardscape, some landscape.
Yep.
And so it's interesting to me how people could want to split hairs there. But are there any red flags you look for if somebody reaches out? Maybe it's not a friend. Maybe it's another company's like, hey,
Yeah.
what are the things you do look for to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of, or you're not being kind of set up to fix somebody else's mess?
Or be the fall guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, one thing for certain is that, if a contractor you don't work with often, or you're not very familiar with, it's your first time meeting with them, and they're, hey, I got this job, I need you to do, the landscape installs on a new commercial install. It's like, all right, well, send me the plans over. I mean, if they send you the plans over and you ask for more information and you don't get a whole lot of information back, then obviously you should have like your guard up a little bit as to what to expect from that. And then obviously your cost, to estimating that should be higher because you don't know what you're getting into. So, I mean, I've worked with some people before where I don't know them that often, and I've looked at some numbers and I'm going, man, are they just getting me because they need somebody else to throw a number? Or are they asking me to bid this because they don't know what they're doing and they're hoping I do? And then, they're going to try to pin everything that's wrong, on you. So there's different ways of looking at that. So I think that, if it's a contractor you haven't worked with a whole lot, then obviously it's getting to know them. And it's so much easier to work with people you do know. But at the same time, you do need to branch out and take those calls and look at those meetings and ask those questions on companies you don't normally work with, because you'll build a network of people that you might work with now. For example, we were in Garner clearing some land, and we ended up meeting an individual right down the road who owns a pressure washing business, and our interactions with him back and forth were very cordial, very polite. And I was like, hey, I remember saying to him one time, I was like, before you know it, we might end up working together. And like he kind of chuckled and he's like, you know what? He's like, I tell my son that all the time. He's like, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And I thought it was funny because we're hours apart and I've had that conversation my whole life. And I'm like, we might end up a subcontract job at a big install of a commercial building, talking with the contractor. They might say, hey, well, we need to get this place cleaned by the weekend. Do you know anybody that does outside cleaning? And I could go, Mr. Wilson Barber, he will be here. He's right down the road from you. Knock that out. So it's good to branch out and meet other people too, because you may open up a whole world that you didn't know was out there.
So looking at that, I kind of want to take the mirror to it and look at the inverse of it, which is, have you ever had any friends try to get like the friends discount, or anybody else that you're trying to subcontract give you an enormously high number, and you're like, that's not their operating expense because you've obviously been in the world long enough, but they're trying to like really gouge you on price. What do you do in those situations to where your personal relationships might be kind of blurring the lines of business?
So one, friends and the workplace, all that stuff, business is business, friendships are friendships. However, if your friends are building a patio on the weekend at their house and you want to come donate your labor on the weekend, you're off the clock, you're not using all of your equipment, then you're probably going to help your buddy out because that's what friends do. However, you're also not going to buy all the bricks and give to him, buy all the base material and give to him. So there's that too. But if a friend is asking you to give, hey, bid on this job, and we need the deal, we need the
friends and family discount.
Yeah, then it's like, all right, well, first of all, you're not my friend, because when my lights get cut off because I couldn't pay my bills, are you going to help me with that? Because that's what's going to happen, because you're forgetting about the business side of things. So there's that, and I would probably cut ties with whoever that is. It's not going to be a healthy relationship for either one of you, because ultimately, the first time someone's getting distressed, it's kind of like the drowning dog. They're in the water and they're throwing their feet. If they get in distress, they're pulling you down with them. Mm-hmm. So I would stay away from those type contractors. However, the first point you made was, what was the first point you made?
If you're the subcontractor, they're trying to discount, and the other side is if you're the contractor and they're trying to like give you an inflated price as to how much it would cost for them to do the work for you.
If I'm the, oh, all right. So on the other side of that, if I'm the contractor and we're subbing out and they're giving me a price that's way, way inflated or just extremely off the wall. Well, for one, it's the industry that you're in, so you should know that that price is way out of the price range anyways, because you should also be able to estimate. You shouldn't be, subbing people in, not knowing a clue as to what it should cost and just taking all their word for it. However, sometimes, you may go, well, normally we could do this, for 2 or 3% less than what they gave us. However, our timeline won't meet. So sometimes those scenarios are like, all right, well,
the convenience fee
at that price, we're just passing it along. However, for the convenience and the time frame of this project, that's the way it's going to need to go. And so sometimes that stuff happens, and it is what it is. But when someone's 15, 20% more, and it's like, I don't know why you're so much more, that's when you have to ask yourself, all right, is that the sub for this job? And it probably isn't. You probably find somebody else that you want to have. And I wouldn't say you always hire subs that are your friends, and that you always hire the same ones. Because sometimes you get complacent and someone says, well, they're going to hire me all the time, so let me just go ahead and throw that number up there. I mean, one, that's not the right way to do things either. You should be able to sleep at night knowing that you did everything right. And so, all your pricing should be consistent with what it takes for your company to operate. There should be no, this is the discount for you guys, this is X, Y, and Z. For you, it should be pretty much straight across the board. This is our operating expense, this is our cost, this is what we charge, and you take it or leave it. Zac uses the example all the time of, you don't go to Walmart and be like, can I get this half off? Or, I don't want to pay that. Let me pay this. You don't do that there, so why do it here?
Yeah, you're not bartering at Walmart.
Yeah, that's
right. You buy the product or you don't. So I'm thinking about our Canadian friends. I'm thinking about the young guys right in the industry that individuals might try to take advantage of the inexperience or lack of experience.
Yeah.
Let's say their gut feeling tells them, hey, this number's not right. They don't know for sure, though. Maybe it's a project they haven't done. They don't know how much concrete costs. They don't know how much a large hardscape costs. When it comes to that conversation, is it a direct phone call? Like, hey, is it business appropriate to call someone and say, hey, that number is a little bit higher than I expected. Could you please break it down for me? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, well, for one, it's a conversation, and if you take offense to that, then you're dealing your business with emotion instead of, facts and numbers. I mean, for example, if I quote something and I'm like, say I come up with $100,000 and I'm giving it as a sub, I come up with $100,000 and the contractor's going, I only had 80 budgeted. It's like, okay, well, did you, as a sub, I'm gonna look at it and say, well, did you look at all this? This is all the work I have to do. This is the material, the base material that it's requiring. On the plan, it says this, because it may be something they missed. Mm-hmm. Maybe they didn't see all those special notes because they were skimming through the larger project that they missed that little detail. And then they look at it and they go, ooh, you're right, I didn't see that part. And so it could have been just something completely missed. And now that you've addressed it like adults and you've talked about it, it's like they still hire you even though you're over budget because it's something that they messed up on. Mm-hmm. Your number's not wrong. They didn't estimate or they didn't figure for that. Yeah. So it's a conversation.
Yeah, that's something that I hope is going to be taken away from this podcast, is that it is a conversation. When you're speaking about business, it's about the business. It's nothing personal. This is where I'm at, this is my cost, this is what it is. You have yours, and if there's a gap somewhere in there and you have the conversation, it'll be exploited. You'll clearly see it in the conversation. You tripled your labor costs as to what you would normally, that's where the number came from. Or, yeah, I didn't factor in a base. There was a recent project we had, they didn't factor in how much concrete would be going into one of the jobs, and they're like, oh, that's a lot more than we initially thought. And so the number really got inflated, but they accepted it because they just realized, oh, we need that. We just hadn't considered how much of that we were going to need. Yeah. And so in the conversation, you find that. So especially for new, or I would say new business owners or conflict averse people, just have the conversation. Don't hide from that and don't eat it. Don't just accept it oh, that's what it is. Ask the question. There are things that if something doesn't look right or feel right or anything, I'll either bring it up to Shay or I'll bring it up to the individual and be like, what's here? What's going on here? Something's not right. My spider senses are going off. And oftentimes it's something completely innocent. It's like, oh, you didn't know about this. All right, cool. Totally cool. I just didn't see that or know that. Now I do. Life is good. And so when it comes to being the contractor or being the subcontractor, we've spoken about getting the ego out of the way. Mm-hmm. We've spoken about not fearing confrontation. We've spoken about having integrity and honesty, making relationships. What else would you think needs to be addressed to individuals who are kind of in that world of being the contractor or a subcontractor?
Yeah. So one, you're all in the industry together. So being transparent and being able to talk to someone that you've built a relationship with, about pricing and about expectations and understanding of what they're expecting from you, it should be easy to have. And it should be a two-way conversation that both are willing to communicate with, because ultimately it's going to improve the industry. And if you're truly in the industry for the betterment of it, for the betterment of your career, then improving it improves everything you do. And I say that because we talk about our friends from Canada that we met at the Equip Expo that we are going to very soon reach out to and set up a Zoom podcast or something. But, he was telling me about a job that he was bidding out. It was like a landscape over rehab where it was going through some flower beds. And the price, that he gave them was higher. And he was like, do you think this is too high? And my response was like, well, you need to sit down, you need to figure out your operating expense and figure out what that is. And if you feel like it's too high and they're like, well, I only have X. Well, once again, back to the bargaining thing, you don't bargain over the price of the shirt. This is the cost of the goods. But I don't think it's bad to bounce cost of, a job with someone else or with another company in the industry. And so I think that, for example, some people price just by square footage on like patios or sod, and some people price by like, time and materials. And so I don't think it's bad to bounce those ideas with other people in the industry and saying, hey, well, how do you price this? Mm-hmm. This is how I price it. How do you price it? And see where your numbers are. And then also look at it and see like, all right, well, our numbers are way different. Why? Are my operating expenses higher? Because then your number needs to be higher. And hopefully you can continue to sell jobs. If not, maybe it'll make you evaluate and say, well, maybe I need to lower my operating expense because this is where it should be, and I've just got a bunch of excess that I don't need. And so, it's a way for you to reevaluate your company to make more profit and to just streamline things and be more efficient. And who knows, you may explain to your other partner that you're talking to, and they may realize, well, dag, we've been giving this stuff away.
Time to make some adjustments.
And so we need to make some adjustments and be like you, because you said you sell jobs this way all the time. And so, you help the industry, because now across the board, everyone's kind of pricing, relatively the same. Not saying that, people don't need their edge, but it does help out, when people are within a few dollars if you're pricing by square. So particularly if you got like patio jobs and you price them out per square foot, you may do a patio in the backyard that you can't get to very easily. You may do that at like $18 to $19 a square foot, but your buddy may be doing them at 22. Well, you're different companies. You have different operating procedures. Maybe his laborers cost a little less or a little more, vice versa, or maybe he's renting versus owning, which we just talked about in a previous podcast. And so it's, there's some varying factors there. And so it's good to bounce the ideas across, because now you see where everyone else is at. They see where you're at. You get to figure out what it is they're doing that you're not doing that, allows them to operate less, or they see like, well, man, if that's where the industry's at, I'm way low, and I was wondering why I've been struggling to pay my bills, then maybe I should increase that. One more example before I turn it back to Zach. We did some work in Charlotte, in a neighborhood, or right outside of Charlotte in Huntersville, a couple of years ago, and we built a patio and outdoor kitchen and some seating walls and fire pit. And what I found fascinating when we went 5.5 hours to the west was we showed up with our own dump trucks, our own equipment, all our material, on the job site ready to roll. And then right next door, they were also getting a phenomenal landscape done. But all the materials got delivered, on site, dumped in the street, made a mess. All the equipment was rented, so they had multiple rental agencies out there dropping equipment off. And I was like, man, it's so much more efficient when you have all your own stuff. Yep. And you bring all your own materials and all that stuff. But I realized in Charlotte or Huntersville area, maybe those people don't operate that way. They've got all that stuff factored into their cost. For me, I was doing this for my brother-in-law, so he got us to come do that, and he had a quote for someone else, and we were way under it, and we didn't give him the friends and family costs as we talked about, but we were way under, and I was like, well, that's why we were way under. I was like, because
They got rental.
I was like, these people are, their labor still needs to get paid for that whole day, but they've got a whole day of, well, we got to wait for the materials before we can go to work. Well, the guys are still getting paid, or we got to wait for the rental to get here. So it's like they're waiting, whereas we showed up, we're ready to work. So there's that difference there as to, how efficient you can be.
Have you heard the phrase, focus on the facts and not your feelings?
I have now.
There you go. It's a good one. And so I'm a fan of it because it's all about like getting your personal perspective out of the way and just looking at the overall picture. And to me, when I'm looking at contractors, when it comes about facts and not feelings, a contractor's job is to give the best product that they can give to their client in as timely a manner at the highest quality that they can. Mm-hmm. And a subcontractor, their job is to perform the task of which they were hired to do at the highest performance and standard that they can. And when you get the feelings out of the way as to whether the contractor is afraid to let go, like just don't worry about letting go or being seen as anything. It's just hire the company that you might need to do the job that you can't do for whatever reason. It's not that you can't do it, so don't think that you can't. It's just that in that moment, somebody else is better suited to do it, so you can go focus on the next thing.
Yeah.
Focus on running the business instead of always being in the business. Let the other person handle that. So if a contractor can let go, they'll find better results. And a subcontractor, if they can stop thinking that they're less than or somehow like avoiding those jobs because they don't want to be inferior or working for somebody else, like I run my own company, I'm not your subcontractor. If they can just get out of their own way and just objectively approach it as to, cool, someone sees me as being worthy and able to do a high quality job for them that they would put their name on as well, then that's a compliment. And so they might go into it and have an opportunity open for them. And we just had this happen with a country club. We just had this happen to where we were subcontracted to do some artificial turf and some hardscape, and that opened the door to making a new relationship. And they were already saying, hey, we've got other work like this. We love what you're doing. We would love to have you go there. Yeah. Imagine saying, well, I'm not going to be your subcontractor and having lost that relationship, which could be profitable for the business. Because at the end of the day, the goal is not to just say, I was never a subcontractor. The goal is to run a successful business. Because that's how you support your livelihood, the livelihood of all your employees, and that's how you serve your community. And so as long as you focus on that goal, you're always going to find success. So get the feelings of like greater than, less than out of the way and just do your job.
Yeah.
Just work. Right. And just produce and serve the community well, your clients well, and you win.
Yeah, I also think as a sub, get the feelings out of the way. You were hired to do a specific task. However, you're in the industry, so if you're on the job and you're noticing that the job isn't progressing the way that it should, and you've got an idea of how to speed that up, talk to the contractor about it. Present that to them, because ultimately, if it's something that you can do, well, you may increase your job, you may increase the overall productivity of it, because now you're able to get one portion done, and now you can jump right into the portion you were originally hired to do. And so you're not delaying your schedule. We've got a pretty backed up schedule, and so therefore if we get delays on, we're pretty backed up in our schedule, and so if we get a lot of delays on the job, then it makes it where it's like, all right, well, now we're pushing this job back and this job back and this job back. And so it might seem like we're doing more at the job, but we're also speeding the process up to where we're not delayed so much. And so get your feelings out of the way, present a solution to the contractor you're working for, and say, hey, if you're cool with it, we can do this portion here while we're here, the equipment's here, and go ahead and knock that out and kind of eliminate this back and forth between multiple vendors and make it more streamlined and easy transition on the job site. So you got to get all the feelings out of the way and make sure that you perform, to the best of your ability, give the quality that you were hired to give, as well as provide that service and provide, whatever you can to the job so that things move smoothly and that you can transition, from that job to your next job. And like you said, you make a friendship there. It's about who you know, and as long as you're always being as professional and polite and giving everything you can give, then you'll never run out of work in this industry. There's always something to do here, and if you don't have work in the landscaping industry, then you're doing something wrong. You should talk to another landscaper, another contractor, and find out what it is they're doing. They should be open arms to helping you or talking to you, and if they're not, then they're worried. They're scared of you as being their competition. They're scared you're going to take a job from them, and that should also be a pat on your back, because it should say, hey, I'm doing something right because he's not willing to talk to me.
Listen, it's the second day of 2026. Take the information, apply it, use it to have a great year. We have started the new year. We are 2 days into it. We are also 2 podcasts into it, so we're 2 for 2. But take that, roll with it, but don't just listen to these, go apply them. And if you're not in landscaping, like this doesn't apply to me, man, it does. The lessons and the themes inside can apply to accounting, being a firefighter. I mean, it can go across every spectrum of professional business interactions with others because these themes go with people. This is how you interact with people. So just get out of your way. Facts over feelings. Have a great one and enjoy your 2026 by applying all the information you hear from this episode and all future episodes that you will listen to because you are subscribed like an awesome human being. Guys, stay well.